Welcome to the podcast, Speaking to Influence, Communication Secrets of the C-Suite. I'm Dr. Laura Sokola, your host, founder of Vocal Impact Productions and author of Speaking to Influence, Mastering Your Leadership Voice. My guest today is Janet Salazar, President and Executive Chairman at the Foundation for the Support of the United Nations. Janet, welcome to the show.
Hey, Laura, thank you so much. And hello, everyone. Laura, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm so grateful and really excited to start the conversations with you. And of course, for our audience who are listening right now.
I think the last time we talked was actually at the UN a few years ago, when we talked face to face last, and we we're chatting after an event, had a nice glass of wine. So we're going to pretend we're right back there and we're going to pick up the conversation right where we left off. Sound good to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that.
Excellent. Now, first, I know that at this point, this is my little pre-show question that has a little warm up for us. You have traveled just about everywhere in your work with the UN. But what's one place that you haven't been to that you figured you probably would have been to by now? And if it's not a country, you've been to all those, then feel free to pick a specific city or something.
Right. Yeah. No, I really want to go to Kenya.
Oh, haven't done that yet.
Yeah, I have not. I have not been in any part of Africa at all. And I know, I'm set to go there hopefully next year when all this COVID issue is under control. But yeah, Kenya would be on top of my list because I really hear a lot about it and how beautiful it is, especially Nairobi, and then outside of that, just be with nature. I love nature so much. So I think Kenya, I can get a lot of that, and so I'm excited about it. Yeah, so Kenya on top of my list.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay, so now tell us, you said the acronym is FSUN, but the Foundation for the Support of the United Nations. What does that mean exactly? People don't think of the United Nations as needing a foundation to support it. Help us understand.
Yes, thank you, Laura. Basically, there are, so the Foundation for the Support of the United Nations is an international organization that has the highest accreditation with the United Nations, specifically with the Economic and Social Council. There's like 153 of us, and among all the thousands of other local and international NGOs that are accredited with the United Nations. So to your point, you ask, many times people think that the United Nations does not need any help, or any support. But contrary to that is actually the fact that the United Nations, as big as it is, relies upon international organizations like the Foundation for the Support of the United Nations to help on the ground, and to help the planning, et cetera, and the deployment of its projects. Specifically right now, I'm sure a lot of our audience and yourself included, are very familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, which was adopted in 2015 after the MDGs. So that is right now, the most ambitious and the biggest a set of goals, right? 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations is seriously working with all the governments and organizations around the world to deploy and make happen in 2030. So this is a big chunk of what we do at the United Nations, at the Foundation for the Support of the United Nations, to really be part of the arm, so to speak, right, on the ground of the United Nations, to reach people that otherwise, a lot of times cannot be, reached by the United Nations to implement these projects and programs, etc.
Great. Okay. Well, that sounds like a rather big job, if I'm not mistaken. So give me a sense of who you need to influence. Yeah, let's talk about just on the direct level. Who do you directly need to influence? Because it sounds like your work stretches around the whole world. But who do you personally need to influence?
Absolutely. So for us specifically with FSUN, our mandate and our strongest capacity, since we started, is really the private sector. So we're very strong when it comes to public-private partnerships. Even, inside the United Nations, I'm sure, you've mentioned earlier, you've attended quite a few of our events there, our global events. So that's pretty much where our strength lies. We are, we interface pretty much with the private sector and the business sector to sort of like be the voice of, what the Sustainable Development goals is all about, and why the private sector and the business sector should support these goals and should really help in, not only capital, behind it, but resources, allocating resources, from their companies to help achieve the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations.
Okay.
So,
And
yeah.
and in doing this, what's the biggest communication challenge that you and Afsan are facing today?
Well, if you talk about today, I mean, I think everyone can identify with the fact that because of our current environment, it really is that the limited ability of communicating, through virtual. I mean, virtually pretty much just on phone and Zoom, like this, compared to being able to, sit down, for example, with the CEO and have lunch, have dinner, have a drink even, and explain to them what the SDGs are all about, why are we doing this, and all that kind of thing. So the objectives of it, etc. So that, this current virtual environment that we have, I guess, is something that's a bit challenging. Although the past couple of months, or so, we've been able to sort of get into that level of mastering a little bit, on how to get our messaging across, for example, the CEO or the business owner effectively, even though we're just talking on the phone or just doing the Zoom.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I'm curious because you're working with countries, both developed, developing, and everything in between, but you're primarily working with the leadership of those of the countries and the companies within the countries.
Yes.
But do you still find that things like bandwidth and effective internet connectivity are even getting in the way of your communication?
Lately, like I said, because of a lot of improvement and progress, I believe in bandwidth capacity, etc. Because of the need, right, for all of us, we all depend on bandwidth right now and internet. I think it's improving a lot. So
Good.
The barriers are getting lesser and lesser. I think now, one of the challenges lies in really now, communicating it, on a more on a personal level, I mean, like an energetic level, not anymore about technology, etc., the bandwidth, etc., right? But
Good.
more of like really letting the other person know, like, for example, the prime minister or whoever, letting them feel, your conviction and commitment to this project, for example, and why are you asking them to come on board. Yeah.
Sure. I think it's hard enough. I mean, intercultural communication and getting the right feel, interpreting another person is hard enough by itself. And having people, when you're restricted to virtual communication, is also hard enough to get someone to feel who you are and to get the sense of you as a person, your energy, your personality, your integrity, your all the good stuff you want to convey is also hard enough. When you merge the two together, I would imagine that it is more than an additive challenge.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's why I think for me, communications at this time, of the COVID restriction, entails a lot of elements to come up with an entire package, right? Not only the bandwidth and internet, capacity, not only the way we see each other on screen like this and be able to transfer that energy and enthusiasm, but also, a lot of times materials as well. So we rely a lot on our materials also, like the visuals.
Yes.
We have to present decks, etc. So if you take it, as a package, I think the key right now is really what it is. I mean, all together, and that makes for a successful communications at this time, I believe. Yes.
Now, you're somebody who, if I remember correctly, was sort of born with the gift of conversation and your ability. You're very comfortable talking with people from all different backgrounds. And you are sort of a natural communicator, but at the same time, in order to be president of the foundation, to be the executive chairman, you had to have had to develop some other communication skills along the way, something that wasn't just innate from birth. What did you have to develop communication skill wise to be successful where you are now?
Well, of course, confidence has to play a lot of role into it, as what everybody knows. So even though I've had that innately, I still have to cultivate it, right? Because I speak with or to, a lot of people, different levels. So, it's sort of like many times I have to tailor my approach, I have to tailor my energy, to the type of audience that I'm speaking to, whether that's in the hundreds or thousands or just a few, or even a couple of ambassadors that I'm speaking to. So that's one thing. And then I think I've mentioned before, I'm a stickler when it comes to pronouncing names.
Mm.
So yeah, and I think it is a very important element of communications. If for me personally, one of the best things that I express my respect to the other person is when I'm able to properly pronounce their name, to correctly pronounce their names. And the job that I do, and as a foundation, internationally, it's hard sometimes and very challenging because there's so many different people that we deal with from across the world, different nations with different names that are sometimes so hard to pronounce, just it's not like an everyday for us, so I make sure that I research, I even ask the other person, am I pronouncing your name properly? Because I wanted to make sure that, I'm addressing you correctly. And that makes me feel good when I'm communicating with a person. I feel more effective. I feel that I'm going to be more received, when I from time to time mention the name of who it is that I'm talking to or speaking with, and I mention the name correctly.
I love it. And that's when you said it, the importance of pronouncing someone's name right, my heart just did a little happy dance. And for those of you who have not seen my TED Talk yet, of course, the title is Want to Sound Like a Leader, Start by Saying Your Name Right. So if you haven't heard it yet, go take a look at my TED Talk on YouTube. But a little shameless self-promotional plug. But it was a perfect segue given what I swear I did not prompt her to give that answer. That was completely Janet's own decision, but it was a great opportunity to show where, and it is just that much harder when you're trying to share your name with someone who does not understand or does not speak your language as a native language or just comes from a very different background one way or another. So help them help you, help them understand it so they can say it right for you in return. Okay.
Right.
Then along those lines, perhaps it wasn't with regard to pronouncing someone's name, but what's a different kind of communications related mistake that you made or a lesson that you had to learn the hard way coming up? And if you could go back and have a do-over, what would you do differently?
Well, a lot of times in the majority of my speeches, right, I've had to open the event, our own global event, Sarah, and within that, I've had to acknowledge, our guest of honor, our VVIPs, our partners, etc. Specifically inside the United Nations, you have to acknowledge all the ambassadors, etc. So one of the embarrassing moments, I must say, that I've experienced is, again, it goes back to really pronouncing the names of a certain ambassador and switch the country. So I not only pronounced the name incorrectly, but I also switched the country that he represents. So I think there was a 30-second sort of awkward moment and everybody was silent, of course, at the UN. And of course, a lot of them will not even know who am I referring to, but to that specific ambassador, that is where my embarrassment is all
Sure.
about, right? So it's like a one-on-one thing and you chatted, how come you forgot my name in my country and stuff. So, but I recovered after that. So I think, and that happened a couple of times, actually. Again, like I said, many times, it is quite challenging, especially for me, many times I seldom use notes, right? Because, I believe, okay, I can do this, I memorize all the name, etc. And then it happens that you really miss, and not only, but mispronounce, that's the worst, the name. So I usually apologize after that. And yeah, I think they forgot it now. But so after that, I made notes. I actually made sure, if I had to introduce more than 5 ambassadors of guests or guest of honor, I made sure I have notes already. I don't want to make the same mistake again. And I think when it comes to acknowledging names and guests, it is quite all right to have a little bit of a note to look at time to time. So.
Sure. And that's one of those moments where the moment you hear those that the word come out of your mouth that's wrong and you catch it, even though you probably only paused for 2 seconds
Yeah.
to collect yourself and get ready to fix it, it must feel like this eternal silence, and you just sort of want the world, the floor to open up and swallow you. Oh, those are the worst feelings when you do those kinds of things. At least they are for me. I don't know if you had the same OMG kind of moment, but
Right. And that's recorded. I mean, the you and always records are
so it's
for me. It's, you know what I mean? Like it's
it's
suspended
been immortalized forever.
internally. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So there's no escaping. You couldn't say, oh no, that never happened. There's no deniability whatsoever. Yikes. So see out there, if you ever make those mistakes, at least you know it's not there forever for the world on recording. So then with all of this, what's the next big goal for you, whether personally or for the foundation? What skills
Well,
do you have to develop?
right. Thank you, Laura. That I really love that question very much because I'm always looking forward to having adventure, whether personally or through the work that I do with the foundation or our private business. But for the foundation, because that's really like, you know, where the pulse, my pulse is right now and our conversations. So I'm excited about the expansion that, you know, that we have started, and with 2021, you know, hopefully better days ahead of us post-COVID, we should be able, and I'm confident, to resume and be on track with, you know, our scheduling for expansion. And I'm really excited about Africa. That is where, you know, our next full expansion plan is going to happen. We are already registered in Nairobi in Kenya. That's
Wow.
headquarters, yeah, the hub for the entire Eastern and West, you know, Africa, all of the continent pretty much. So, and we already have a lot of conversations happening between me and the first ladies of the key countries in Africa to start some form of a coalition there, you know, with the support of these first ladies. And, you know, every time I hear about their projects, the more that they tell me about it, the more that I get so excited. So that, to me, that alone, you know, makes me like really want to like, okay, let's go for it already. Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So are there any specific communication skills that you're going to need to continue to develop to be successful there in Kenya?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, for the entire Africa, absolutely. Oh my God, Laura. The fact that I haven't been there, it will be my first time, you know, with my team to be there. And then for me, you know, personally having to deal with a much higher level diplomats, right? Even presidents, you know, and first ladies. There's definitely a lot of learnings I have to do. I actually have to train as well, you know, how to properly, you know, just culturally be more sensitive on how to communicate with them, you know, properly and stuff. So I'm also excited about that. But yeah, I'm preparing for that as well. And I know it's going to be a little challenging because it's something new to me. But I think that universally as human beings, you know, our way of communication. So there are certain elements that are basic to us as human beings when it comes to communication. So I'm counting on that, of course, you know, to see me through, you know, this next frontier of communicating with more of the leaders in the African continent. But I'm positive it's going to be all right.
Oh, it's going to be great. I have no doubt. But that the learning the protocols and the cultural ways and things, of course, is an incredibly important chapter in any new relationship when you're crossing national borders, to say the least.
Yes.
So this brings us to our listener 24-hour influence challenge. Janet, this is your opportunity to speak directly to our listeners and challenge them to take one step that they can complete in the next 24 hours so that they have more influence. How would you like to challenge our listeners today?
All right. This is from me, and this I practice every day of my life. And this is, to me, the most important thing, which is to love yourself. Make time for yourself, because you can never give what you don't have. So if you do not have strength, if you do not have energy, you don't have inspiration, you don't have resources, you know, in practical ways, you can't give it. So if you really want to be more effective out there, to help other people, make other people's lives better, you've got to start with yourself first. So love yourself. I mean, pamper yourself, exercise, eat what you love, eat healthy and all that stuff. I know a lot of this is cliche, but there is so much benefit from that. As a matter of fact, that's the best love you can give, is actually loving yourself and enjoying what you enjoy doing, all that, enriching yourself, forgiving yourself if you make mistakes, etc. And if you do that, make it a daily habit. For me, I do that every morning, and prepare for my day, and then in the evening, at night, before sleeping, and all that stuff. If you do that, you feel more generous in giving back. You feel more energized and inspired, to help even your friends and families. You don't have to do great things even, right? Especially, at these times where we have multi-crisis, etc. But yeah, so you become more full pretty much in giving more of yourself to other people. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, this brings us to looking now at how you lead others who are your direct reports and others in the organization. Let's talk first about executive presence, otherwise known as leadership presence, command presence. What is it? How do you recognize it?
Leadership is an entire package, Laura. You can't. For us, who has more experience, I believe, right? We've managed people for a couple of decades, etc. It's so easy to pretty much recognize that it factor. It's just like, when you see with other people, that's unmistakable. Like right away, I could tell this is a leadership material, right? But besides that, because you really can't just depend on one element or, a couple of factors when you're trying to assess a person, other than, of course, that first impression and that energy that they give off, but beyond that, there are also other supporting elements. That's why it makes it an entire package, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and that you could also identify once a person starts to talk.
Yes.
To me, that's very important. And this is where communications come in, I
Good.
can tell right away, if a person is just being, nice, or just, like trying to sweet talk or to really have that authority and that leadership quality that I'm looking for. So, yeah.
And on that note, when you're either grooming a high potential employee or looking to hire somebody for a leadership role in the organization, what communication skills do you look for? And what would be a red flag that would make you say, nope, this one's a no-go?
You can tell when somebody is so rigid into sticking into one approach of explaining what they wanted to tell you, versus being more creative, in such a way that if they see you raise your eyebrow or they see you look at them quizzically, like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Then right away they can pick that up, and they're easy to switch. They can switch easily in an approach that will eventually make you understand them. So I'm impressed, with that quality of communications, and I've seen that a lot in so many young people. So the most important thing is they should be able to also read your face, read your body language. For example, as a boss, right, and you're asking them something, and you look at them like they have seven heads, for example. They should be able to pick that up right away and pivot and communicate their message in such a way that they can get you back on track to listening to them again. Otherwise they will lose my interest. They will definitely lose me, and I'll just zone out, and
Sure.
Yeah. So a red flag, going back to your question, to complete this, a red flag would be if someone would be talking so much about the me-centered approach, all about them, etc. I mean, we acknowledge that people have accomplishments and they want to talk about that. We love talking about our accomplishments, etc. But if it starts to really drown the conversation so that the focus is just all about themselves, then it's a red flag for me.
Okay. And this brings us then to the speed round. And these are a couple of topics that regularly come up in my training and my coaching, where people tend to get stuck on these ideas, feeling like it's black or white, and they don't like which side of the fence they think they're on. But we want to do a little bit of myth busting and let people know that it doesn't have to be either or. And also, they tend to think that these are areas that they alone struggle with, and that people at the top like you never struggle with. You were born perfect and you never have troubles and whatnot. So
That's
we're
true.
so we want them to understand that everybody works through stuff, and it is still possible to do that and get to the top. So let's talk first. I'm going to ask you a quick A or B. I'd like you to choose A or B, and then I'll give you an extra question for some more detail. First, public speaking. Love it or hate it?
Oh, love it.
Now, what should people do? Like you mentioned confidence earlier, that confidence is a natural part of who you are, which of course makes you very good at your job. But for those who don't have as much confidence when speaking in public, what's one tip that you can give them to help them get a little confidence boost?
Own it.
Okay. And what does that look like?
Words, yeah, for me, those two words are very, very powerful. Once you internalize that and you practice it, own it. Whatever kind of speech you're going to give, no matter how many audience you have, thousands, hundreds, 1, 2, 10, it doesn't matter. Own it. Once you visualize yourself on that stage in front of that microphone, and this is your game. This is yours. You alone has the authority in that room. That's owning it, and that once you have that, once you practice that, and once you constantly have that as your ethos, as your mantra, your communications ethos, it completely, wraps you around that confidence, and that really, people can feel that as well. They can feel the authority there, your own self-leadership, that you own, this moment. You are the boss in this moment. You know what I mean? Your voice is the only one that everybody's going to listen to at this moment. That's owning it. And I guarantee you, once you practice that, I know many times it's easier said than done. I know that very well. I mean, but really try that. Yes. Every day, especially if your career track is towards that, speaking, just even presenting, to the board, your project, your companies, etc., pitching, your new venture to investors, etc. Those two words are very, very powerful if you start practicing that, owning. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, own it.
All right. 2 words, everybody, own it. You heard it here first. Now, Janet, what about the introvert extrovert continuum? Where do you fall?
Right now, at this point in my life, I consider myself more of an introvert now, although I still have extroverted qualities, of course, because I love speaking. I still, do a lot of presentations. I interact with, a lot of our partners, etc. And again, like I said, it's just within me, right? That, I'm a speaker pretty much. But when I was younger, I was completely, totally, I believe, extroverted because I still defended. And I think a lot of our listeners can identify to this, that when we were younger, we tend to still wanted so much that validation, outside affirmation of our capacity, of our abilities, etc., our accomplishment. So when you are still in that space, you are more extroverted because your happiness, your joy, your energy depends so much on outside validation, outside energy like that. So when people, say something bad, your energy, definitely you're disappointed, you're frustrated, etc., that kind of thing. But for me personally, in my journey, as I grow older and where I am right now, I cherish now, more than ever, I cherish my quiet moments, being alone with myself, being alone with the divine, with nature, just being more in touch, with a higher force, I wanted to say. And that feeds my soul very well. And that is, to me, I'm more introverted when it comes to that.
Needing more quiet time to recharge your batteries of sorts.
Recharge, etc. Yeah. And plug in, to the source.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Oh, Okay, so then my last question for you is about conflict. And when you're faced with a possibly difficult conversation, for example, is your natural instinct, your DNA hardwiring to want to avoid conflict at all costs or to just address it head on?
Oh, DNA wise, I don't like conflict. I was born not to ever want to have anything to do with conflict,
So
but
what
yeah,
have you learned then about how to manage that desire
right.
to run and handle it effectively?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I consider myself very tough and brave when it comes to handling conflicts. I mean, because you can't avoid them, right? And through
Sure.
the years, so many conflicts, especially where I am right now, my position, the business, the foundation, etc. There's like almost conflicts all the time, right? And lots of egos to deal with, with people and partners, etc. So one of the effective ways I learned how to deal with these kinds of things is listening. I actually now developed a much higher level of the capacity to listen.
Mm,
And I'm telling you, Laura, and our listeners, based on my own experience, when you start practicing that, it is pretty much a lot of times the antidote to to conflict. A lot of conflicts gets resolved if we only try to learn how to listen better.
yes.
Listen better so that we can understand where the other party is coming from. We can understand their reasonings, their the reasons why they are behaving, in such a way, and that is what's causing the conflict there. So
Mm.
listening, yeah, that's been my lifelong learning, and I'm still learning every day. We don't stop learning, but listening, that word to me is key. Yeah,
Yes.
in how I've been dealing with, making sure that the conflicts are resolved,
Sure.
not necessarily many times in the way of the outcome that we want them to be, but many times for really better results. Yeah, and
I
yeah.
love the way you said that. The listening is the antidote to conflict. So everybody, if you are looking for your little gold nugget of the day that you want to write on your arm or write on your bathroom mirror in a Sharpie or even a dry erase marker or something, that I think is your little gold nugget of wisdom today. This certainly is mine. Listening is the antidote to conflict. That was beautiful. I'm going to remember that. Uh, so, all right, Janet. Thank you so much for joining us today. How could people learn more about you and the Foundation for the Support of the United Nations?
Thank you so much again, Laura, for having me. I had so much fun. I didn't even realize we're ending now. It's so much fun talking with you, and of course, knowing that we have our listeners who are joining us today. But you can visit my couple of websites. Of course, if you want to know more about the work that we do at the Foundation for the Support of the United Nations, or FSUN, you could go to fsun-global.org. I'm sure Laura can plug that out later on
Everything will be in the show notes. Absolutely.
in the show. And if you want to know more about the entire me and what I do, not only with the foundation, but our other businesses and the activities that I do, my passion, etc., what I'm engaged with, you can visit my personal website. It's janetsalazar.co. So it's not .com, it's .co. So my
Right.
name, Janet Salazar.co. And I'm sure
Yes.
Laura will have that up as well later.
Of
Laura.
course. Of
Yes.
course. That's great. Well, once again, Janet, thank you so much. It's been great to reconnect with you. And I love the view. So those of you who are listening outside, who are just listening on iTunes or something else, you can't actually see this, although you can go to my YouTube channel and see the actual video itself. Janet has the most amazing view out the window. And she's in her apartment right now in New York, but she's literally across the river from the UN. Will you tell everybody how you told me you want to commute to work?
Right. Yeah. I always tell everybody now, it's exactly right across the East River from the United Nations that I can literally zip line from my bedroom, to the United Nations and be right there, but of course, before I ever do that, the NYPD will already come.
You will probably not be successful, but theoretically speaking, she has a direct shot right across the river
Right.
from her unit up on the 38th floor, right? I mean, I can see it
Yes.
right out the window. It's absolutely a gorgeous view.
Thank
So
you.
zip lining to the United Nations as your daily commute. That is another new one for me. I have
I
not.
wish.
All right, well, Janet, thank you again for joining us today. And everybody else, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes so that we can help even more people increase their confidence, presence, and influence. And finally, if you want to download my quick start guide to mastering the 3 C's, command the room, connect with the audience, and close the deal, go to speakingtoinfluence.com. I'm Dr. Laura Sokola, and you're listening to Speaking to Influence, Communication Secrets of the C-Suite. Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Laura Sokola, and I want to sincerely thank you for listening to the Speaking to Influence podcast. If you love listening to these episodes as much as I love bringing them to you, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And please go to iTunes right now to rate and review our podcast in order to help us expand our reach so even more people can master the 3 C's to command the room, connect with the audience, and close the deal.
Thanks for listening to Speaking to Influence, Communication Secrets of the C-Suite, the show for leaders who want to speak with impact. The hosts, producers, owners, and media distributors of the show make no guarantees that the strategies and information discussed will result in profit or other success and may result in losses. The opinions and statements of the hosts and guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the owners, staff, managers, broadcasters, or sponsors of the show. No medical or psychological therapy or personal or professional wellness or relationship advice is offered in the show. You are advised to seek counsel on matters related to your health, family, relationships, job, or other business and legal matters from licensed advisors in those areas prior to making any changes in business or lifestyle. No information provided may be suitable in your situation. As always, take responsibility for the decisions and actions you take, including the reactions they may make in your work, family, health, and life.